Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh, coming up in the next hour. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh assassinated in Iran. Hamas blames Israel, calls it a grave escalation. Protests break out in Venezuela over President Maduro's win. International observers call the elections undemocratic. Death toll in Wayanad landslides crosses 150. Rescue operations on in war footing as many more are fear-trapped. And day 5 of Paris Olympics, India to be in action in sports of shooting, badminton, boxing and more. Double Olympic medalist V Sindhu seals her spot in the round of 16. And the big news that we're tracking at DD India News Hour, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh has been assassinated in Iran's Tehran. In a statement, Hamas mourned the death of Haniyeh, who it said was killed in a treacherous Zionist raid on his residence in Tehran, unquote. The Revolutionary Guards confirmed that the residence of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran was struck this morning, resulting in his and one of his bodyguards' death. Revolutionary Guards of Iran said the cause is under investigation and will be announced soon. Hamas officials termed it as a grave escalation, saying the assassination of Haniyeh will not achieve its goals. The Hamas chief attended Iran's new president's swearing-in ceremony on Tuesday. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has said that he does not think that war is inevitable in the Middle East. He added that if Israel is attacked, the U.S. will help defend Israel.
We certainly will help defend Israel. You saw us do that in April. You expect to see us do that again. But we don't want to see any of that. And we're going to work hard to make sure that we're doing things to help take the temperature down and address issues through diplomatic means.
Meanwhile, Israel Defense Forces said that top Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr was killed in an Israeli strike in southern Lebanon on Tuesday. Israeli military spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said Shukr was responsible for the deaths of 12 children in Mashta al-Shams in Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. He said Fuad is the right-hand Hezbollah Secretary General Nasrallah and was his advisor for wartime operations.
The IDF carried out a targeted strike in Beirut on Fuad Shukr, also known as Shukr, was the right-hand man to Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader, and his advisor in planning and directing attacks and operations. Fuad Shukr was the man responsible for the Majd al-Sham massacre. 12 children were murdered. The IDF will not tolerate terrorist attack on Israeli civilians.
And about the implications of the assassination of Hamas chief, joining me is Professor Kinvera Jangid, head of Israel Studies Center at Jindal Global University. Good afternoon and welcome, sir. Also, DD India correspondent Sarah Coates is live from Tel Aviv. Sarah, let me come to you first. Hamas is saying Israel was behind the raid that killed its leader, Ismail Haniyeh. What is the latest on the Israeli response?
Still no comment or claim of responsibility from the Israelis, and we're really not expecting to get one anytime soon. What we can tell you is that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he will hold a security assessment in the coming hours. Now, we have heard from the IDF's Home Front Command. It put out a statement saying that there right now has been no change in the directive to the Israeli public, but it will update people if this changes at all. Now, also do know that air about an hour from where I am, north this way. It has been closed until at least the end of the day, and the military will continue to reassess. Now, we have also heard from the Supreme Leader in Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He's just spoken out saying that Israel has brought the severest punishment on itself with the assassination of Haniyeh on our land. Now, we are also hearing reports that Israel has stepped up security diplomatic missions around the world, although there has been comment from Israel's foreign ministry on that, coming at an extremely sensitive time. And this is why we're seeing so many diplomatic efforts, intensive diplomatic efforts, to really try and bring this situation under control in a bid to an all-out regional war.
Exactly. The sensitive time that is, how does the killing of Hamas chief threaten to derail the ceasefire talks in Gaza?
Certainly makes this far more difficult. We do, of course, know that Ismail Haniyeh, he was head of Hamas's Politburo. He was very active in these talks, seen as a representative, of course, of Hamas. But when it comes to these talks, these negotiations have been going on now for months and months, really not getting anywhere, just stumbling blocks in these talks. So certainly will make this deal much more difficult. But really what we're looking at now is the potential for escalation in the region. Iran is vowing to respond. We're also hearing condemnation from Turkey, from Russia, from China, of course, Iran as well. So it is a very dangerous time in the region. And this is why we've heard from the US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin speaking out from the Philippines. He says Israel has the right to defend itself, adding that the United States will assist Israel if it is attacked. Now, once again, this is just a matter of hours ago. It is still a developing story. We know that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he will continue to hold assessments throughout the day. And once again, the directive for the Israeli public has not changed. Certainly, the IDF, the Home Front Command, will instruct Israelis if there are any incoming threats, and they do need to get to shelter. But right now, on the ground here in Israel, it is basically business as usual.
Okay, Sarah, thank you for those updates. Mr. Jahangir, at a time when the entire region of West Asia appears to be on the edge, your take on what could Ismail Haniyeh's assassination could mean for the conflict?
Well, it would certainly mean a very serious amount of worries for a number of players. But I think it must have surprised in the aftermath of the visit that the Netanyahu had in America. He just came back and he kept saying that he is willing to have a ceasefire deal. It seems like he was saying this more for the sake of saying, and this act of, let's say, targeted assassination, as and when Israel will confirm, seems like an act which will not show any sign of de-escalation or any amount of ceasefire. Now, the Israeli public would not be very thrilled with it, because in Israel for a number of weeks and months, people have been coming out more for the sake of release of their hostages and recovery of the lived or the dead bodies. What does this act do by the Israeli leadership is that it ups the conflict. It just makes the conflict far more lethal coming weeks and months. Already Israel was dealing with a situation in the north with Lebanon. But this planned activity around the movement of Ismail Haniyeh and other leaders, we don't know how many they are tracking, it seems like Israel is going to really continue fighting in Gaza or around the places in the Middle East, rather than looking out for a compromise deal with Hamas. So this really should worry countries like India, because India has been really asking for some amount of restraint on the part of the Israeli leadership.
Right, and given that the assassination took place on Iranian soil, how does that complicate the entire conflict? I mean, could it also draw Iran into a more direct conflict with Israel?
I don't think Iran will have a direct conflict with Israel. I think
We appear to be having some network issue.
they
We are
would
connected
like
with
their
Professor Jahangir.
proxies to continue
Yes.
continue attacking Israel.
Yes, please go on, sir. Yeah.
I personally think that the Palestinian issue has never been a very significant issue for the Iran to have a full-scale war with Israel. They make a good rhetoric and an excuse out of the Palestinian issue, but they don't really mean much beyond a certain amount of rhetorics against Israel and America in the name of the Palestinian issue. So Ismail Haniyeh's assassination will again be an event forgotten soon. And Iran will just continue fighting Israel with its proxies, but not pick up a direct fight with Israel on this issue.
Okay, and just to understand what kind of a setback it is for the Hamas, how does Haniyeh's killing, what does it mean for Hamas leadership? How does its political and military leadership differ?
That's a very interesting aspect, and I'm very glad you asked that, because Ismail Haniyeh is more of a moderate. Now, there is nothing moderate in the larger scheme of things in the Hamas's ideology. Hamas is a very religious, fanatic, jihadist organization to a certain extent. It also has certain people who are more into nationalist liberation spirit of the Palestinian issue. But Hamas has not really, come out clear on the two-state solution. Hamas has not accepted the state of Israel and the two-state solution. Ismail Haniyeh was the possible person who would have done that in his last 5 years. In fact, it's a known thing that when the October 7th attack was carried out, Ismail Haniyeh and Khalid Mashal were not in the loop. The October 7th planning was done by this military commander, Yahya Sinwar, and Sinwar became a very independent political actor, which in a way disagreed with Haniyeh and Khalid Mashal, who used to and who still live outside of Gaza. So in a way, there was an internal fight between a more militaristic and more fanatic struggle that Yahya Sinwar represents, and Haniyeh and Khalid Mashal were seen moderating forces within the Hamas's, inner world. So the assassination of Haniyeh will push Hamas more into the hands of Yahya Sinwar. And of course, Yahya Sinwar now will have less excuse to make a compromise and hostage deal with Israel. And he would have more ammunition to galvanize people and continue fighting a religiously minded war with Israel.
Right.
So yes.
Right. Professor Jahangir, also the question that I posed to our correspondent Sarah Coates earlier, not that much progress was made as far as Gaza ceasefire negotiations is concerned, but how does this development push it even further?
Well, frankly, it's a deal that Hamas did not want, and it's a deal that Netanyahu did not want. The rest of the world wanted this deal very much. The rest of the world and Joe Biden, including Indian leaders, have been asking for a ceasefire deal. But Hamas doesn't want a deal. Hamas wants the war to continue. It earns two things. A, Israel is getting more and more delegitimized. And second, Hamas has miraculously escaped a complete, defeat by the Israeli army. I mean, it has been 9 months that the Israeli army is inside the Gaza, and the Israeli army hasn't really found tail of the tunnels. They found lots of tunnels, miles of them, but they haven't found the tail of it, which means Yahya Sinwar is still under the ground in Gaza somewhere. He also has more than 100 hostages somewhere under the ground of Gaza. And Israeli army has really, really failed in rescuing them by force. So Hamas, in a way, sat quiet. The prolonging of the war gives them more leverage in terms of showing to the rest of the world that Israel is really the evil state, quote unquote. And Netanyahu, on the other hand, is also a person who did not see end of the war in his political favor. Remember, he would lose a great amount of his political standing when the war is over and there is an inquiry about how did Israel miss the October 7th attack. So in order to avoid that moment of hard truth, he wants the war to keep going on. So for him, a maximalist position is something that he has been very candidly about. You quoted Daniel Hagari, the spokesperson of IDF. A month back, he said it on the national television that winning the war in Gaza through military is not possible, and claiming total victory in Gaza or against Hamas is like throwing sand into the face of the Israeli people.
And Professor Jahangir, given the time, I also learned that you've lived in Tel Aviv, lived and taught in Tel Aviv till recently. I'm curious to learn about your first-hand account of what you experienced, observed since the October 7th attack and the conflict as it has snowballed since then.
Well, I don't know how much time you have for that, but yes, I just
if
came
you could
back
brief,
to
sir.
after 4 years. And on October 7th, I was in Israel, and I worked and I continue to work on a project for Ben Gurion University, which is in the south, in the city of Beersheba. And personally, October 7th was a hard day for me. One of my very close acquaintances, a professor who visited Sonipat, who taught in Sonipat for a seminar, he lost his daughter and son-in-law on October 7th while being on a phone with them. And Professor Ilan Tron is a close friend for over a decade. So I personally knew many people who lost their loved ones. Many of the students of the Ben Gurion University were abducted. In fact, 2 of them were released in the last rescue by the Israeli army. So October 7th was a very hard moment. And then there were sirens for a month. I mean, every day it used to be a scary night and day where I had to run to the shelter house in 60 seconds whenever the siren blows. As an outsider, I think what I felt and what I did not see outside in the world is the loss of lives and the suffering of the Israeli common people in the kibbutz. Kibbutz are very, very egalitarian, progressive, largely inhabited by the left, pro-peace, progressive Israelis. I knew one of them, Vivian Silver, who launched a very massive movement for a decade called Women Wage Peace. She was killed on a So I think it's the suffering of the people and a perpetual conflict that you could see, and one could just wonder how will this violence ever end.
Yes, that is a profound question. But Professor Jahangir, thank you very much for joining us on the news hour, sharing your perspective. Still to come on DD India News Hour. Ukraine, Russia claim to have destroyed one another's drone fleet. 2024 US presidential elections is now less than 100 days away. Campaigning gets more intense. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Venezuelans living in Latin American countries, including Argentina, Mexico and Chile, took to the streets on Tuesday to protest and demand transparency in their home countries' recent election results. Protests have also erupted across Venezuela since Monday after the Electoral Authority declared that President Nicolas Maduro had won a third term. US-based Carter Center, which observed the vote, said the election did not meet international standards of electoral integrity and cannot be considered democratic. Russia and China have congratulated Maduro on his win, while many countries are demanding an audit of the election results. The US is considering fresh sanctions on Venezuela. And DD India's Latin American correspondent, Mary Trenimania, has more details.
The opposition gathered in Caracas and other places across Venezuela to continue their claim over Sunday's electoral results. The clashes between protesters and security forces have been repeated since the election took place. Thousands of Venezuelans have taken to the streets showing their discontent and asking for a fair recount of the votes. Venezuela's government-controlled electoral board granted Nicolas Maduro the presidency for a third term. But the opposition casted doubts, saying the figures were fraudulent. Opposition leader Maria Corina Machado says she has the tallies to prove that Edmundo Gonzalez is the real winner. So far, protests have left at least 11 people killed and more than 700 people detained, including key opposition leaders. Venezuelan government authorities have accused Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez of promoting a revolt aiming to revert the peace in the country. The government launched an investigation that could lead to their capture. In a written statement, the UN said that it's concerned about report of arrest. It's calling the authorities to respect the right of people to demonstrate. The Venezuelan Minister of Defense announced that a coup d'etat is on the way, promoted by right-wing leaders, while members of the Venezuelan armed forces pledge loyalty to Nicolas Maduro. But the doubts are not only inside Venezuela. The Biden administration said it's closely monitoring election, demanding electoral authorities to release full, transparent, and detailed voting results. In Caracas, Marita Nimena reporting for DD India.
Let's turn to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Ukraine has said its air defense systems destroyed all 89 drones and one missile that Russia launched on Kiev overnight on Wednesday. Kiev's military administration head said that this was Russia's 7th attack on the city this month and one of the biggest drone attacks since the conflict began. Kiev and most of central and eastern Ukraine were under air raids alerts on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Russian news agency citing Defense Ministry reported on Wednesday that Russia's defense systems destroyed 19 drones launched by Ukraine overnight. The 2024 US presidential elections is now less than 100 days away. Campaigning is getting more intense. Vice President Kamala Harris made a high-profile visit to Atlanta and Georgia, indicating a renewed push for a state that's now back in play for the Democrats. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, stumped in Nevada. More in this report.
And of all of Kamala Harris's faults, the worst of all is that she has left this country weak and vulnerable.
I do hope you'll reconsider to meet me on the debate stage, because as the saying goes, if you got something to say,
the attacks are getting increasingly personal, thriller, the rhetoric getting more animated as the US presidential campaign is turning into a no-holds-barred verbal duel between Team Trump and Kamala Harris. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance have not let up any bit in their attacks on Kamala Harris, who is going to be the Democratic nominee for the November 5th polls. In a rally in the Las Vegas Valley on Tuesday, J.D. Vance launched another broadside targeting Harris and her policies. The Ohio senator accused the media of misleading the American public about Harris's accomplishments.
After covering up for Joe Biden's mental incapacity and incompetence for 3.5 years, now the media is at it again, this time gaslighting us on Kamala Harris's record and achievement. The same media that told us for 3.5 years Joe Biden was Albert Einstein is now trying to tell us that Kamala Harris is Abraham Lincoln.
Vance also accused the vice president of disloyalty to the United States by supporting NAFTA, advocating for open borders, and covering for Joe Biden's state of health. Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign team is now branding Donald Trump and his running mate as weird. Harris is also taking the fight literally to the other camp.
And we are not going back. We're not going back. That's right. So the momentum in this race is shifting. And there are signs that Donald Trump is feeling it.
Trump and J.D. Vance have tried to link Harris to what they claim are Biden administration's failures, while Harris is emphasizing her background as a former district attorney and California attorney general, seeking to contrast herself with Trump, who is the first former president to be convicted of felony crimes. Bureau Report, DD India.
Riots broke out in the English town of Southport after a vigil for the victims of a deadly stabbing attack which killed 3 children. 39 police officers were injured, police vehicles torched. DD India's Stuart Smith has more.
The local MP for the area, Patrick Hurley, told British media that those participating in the violence utterly disrespected the families of the dead and injured children and utterly disrespected Southport. The Regional Police and Crime Commissioner said rioters were largely from out of town, claiming they used the incident to incite violence and hatred, having been stirred up online by the likes of far-right political organisation the English Defence League, while the police, following UK justice requirements, have only released limited details about the identity of the attacker, namely that he is 17 years old and was born in the UK to Rwandan parents. Speculation on social media about him has been rife. His supposed name, religion, motivations and immigration status have all been incorrectly shared to millions, and this has fueled what the Regional Police and Crime Commissioner called far-right thugs to take action on the streets with cries of "We want our country back." A local mosque was the initial target of the rioters. The North West Ambulance Service in the early hours of Wednesday morning once again had to declare a major emergency, as it did after the stabbing attacks, this time to treat 27 injured police officers, some with concussion and fractures. The police say officers will now track down those who took part in the disorder using video footage. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. As part of efforts to expand diplomatic outreach and foster international partnerships, a delegation from the Indian mission in Saudi Arabia, led by Ambassador Dr. Suhail Khan, visited Saudi Arabia's Tabuk province. During his visit, Ambassador met with Tabuk Governor Prince Fahad bin Sultan bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. Strengthening people-to-people and business ties between India and the region was discussed. Productive discussions with the Tabuk Chamber of Commerce, exploring avenues for Indian companies, were also conducted. Pakistan imprisoned ex-PM Imran Khan expresses readiness for talks with military for conditional negotiations. In a statement, he said that he wants to return stolen mandate, referring to his party's allegation of widespread rigging of February 8th general elections. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US and South Korean troops conduct joint military exercise to check combat capabilities of deployment units. Vietnam Prime Minister in India for state visit attends India Business Forum in New Delhi. Parliament budget session continues. India's finance minister to reply to discussion on union budget in the upper house.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Our top stories. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh assassinated in Iran. Hamas blames Israel, calls it a grave escalation. Protests break out in Venezuela over President Maduro's win. International observers call the elections undemocratic. Death toll in Wayanad landslides crosses 150. Rescue operations on in war footing as many more are feared trapped. The US has agreed to provide $500 million in defense aid to Philippines as part of Washington's ongoing efforts to counter Chinese aggression in the Indo-Pacific. The agreement was announced during a visit to Manila by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. DD India's Ira Spitzer reports.
Well, this is just the latest example of the importance which Washington places on the relationship with the Philippines because of the potential to try and influence Chinese aggressiveness in the region with that friendly relationship. Things changed significantly when Ferdinand Marcos Jr. came to power in 2022. We've seen him come to the United States multiple times, as well as multiple visits by Secretary of State Blinken to the Philippines with this $500 million assistance for the Filipino military. This will go towards reportedly modernizing some of their forces, as well as other aspects of defense, such as cyber defenses, which is one area where countries could potentially be vulnerable to China, which has a very advanced cyber hacking capabilities. So this is part of a broader strategy, of course, by Washington. We've just seen Secretary of State Blinken in Japan, where they announced more cooperation with regard to the U.S. military facilities in that country. Of course, other nations such as Australia and others in the region are countries that the U.S. Is allied with and hoping to present this united front against China. With the big question with these sorts of things, such as what we're seeing in the Philippines, which is really directed towards Chinese aggression on some of those disputed territorial waters and islands. The big question is, will this actually change China's behavior in the region? We've seen, of course, this year, Filipino military vessels actually boarded in some cases by Chinese boats because of concerns that they have in those waters. So despite the U.S. pledges of financial assistance and also some sort of veiled threats of potentially coming to the aid militarily, if necessary, of the Filipino Navy, it's still unclear whether this will actually work to deter China's behavior at all, because, of course, China has put a tremendous focus on trying to establish some of these territorial claims in the Indo-Pacific. Reporting near San Francisco, Ira Spitzer for DD India.
Meanwhile, U.S. Army released a video on Wednesday that shows South Korean and American troops conducting a combined arms live-fire exercise. The CALFEX was conducted to check the company-level combat capabilities of the rotational deployment unit. The exercise took place during the ongoing joint military drills in Posha, north of Seoul, less than 30 kilometers from the heavily fortified border with North Korea. The drills come at a time when tensions run high on the Korean peninsula. Vietnam Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh attended India Business Forum in New Delhi today. During the event, several memorandum of understandings were also signed. A direct flight between Ahmedabad and Da Nang was launched. During the event, Vietnamese Prime Minister said economic and trade cooperation has become a pillar of understanding between the two countries.
At an important position as a pillar and as a bridge in the Act East policy has helped to promote Vietnam-India relations and economic relationship to a new height. can say that these successes, apart from fundamental factors grounded in our good relationship between the two nations and the attention paid by the two governments and the two prime ministers, I must mention the cooperation of the business community. I appreciate and applaud the concrete and effective contribution by Indian businesses to the Vietnamese economy and your help in nurturing the relationship between our two countries over the past 50 years.
Moving on, the death toll in the landslides that hit the Indian state of Kerala's Wayanad district has crossed 150 as more bodies are retrieved from the debris. Union Minister George Kurian visited and inspected the relief camps and also extended help at Ground Zero. India's Southern Naval Command dispatched a disaster relief team of 68 personnel, including medical team and equipment, deployed from INS Zamorin for aid in the affected areas. Medical camps have also been set up to provide aid. 19 workers have been rescued so far. Indian Air Force helicopters distributed some 250 kilograms of food and drinking water provided by Kozhikode District Administration to flood-affected areas of Kurmala and Mundakai.
The central government will extend all possible help, whatever is possible. So this is a sort of national territory, and I am confident that not only people of Kerala, people in the rest of the country will also, extend a helping hand with generosity.
And DT India correspondent Ajay Joy joins us live from Wayanad, Kerala. Ajay, what is the latest on the rescue operation and where does the death toll stand as of now?
Shubhendu, so far the confirmed death toll as reported by the district administration is only 140. Although informally we know that more than 150 are confirmed death. But district administration stuck to their figure of 140 because the other figure includes the body parts that were retrieved from the river, the Chaliyar River downstream. And unless the DNA verification is over, district administration will not confirm them as into the mortality rate. Today, the day started on a nice mood with sunshine, and the rescue operations could gather all its strength in the forenoon session. The important fact which happened today was that one of the excavators could reach the Mundakai Hills, which is the epicenter where the landslide occurred. So that was the one good thing which happened today. But by afternoon, rainfall has started. It has picked the strength. Right now, it's heavily raining in the Churanmala area as well. And the area has witnessed high energy rescue operations by Indian Army, NTRF, everyone all together. A temporary bridge is being set up. Defense Security Corps, they will be setting up a proper class 24 Bailey bridge at least by tomorrow evening. That's what they said. So the next 24 hours is very crucial to rescue as maximum as possible from the debris and identify the dead. That will be the key in next 24 hours.
Okay, Ajay, also can you give us a picture of the scale of damage by these deadly landslides? Many villages are left stranded due to the landslide. What is the advisory by the administration?
Administration has it very simple. Do not start any journey into this area unless for genuine rescue operations. Otherwise, everyone is advised to stay back and don't venture into this area right now. Because what we require is the roads need to be very clear. Whatever Indian Air Force is bringing from Delhi, from Bangalore, all these temporary bridge equipments, they must be traveling hassle-free. They're starting from Kannur or Kozhikode, and they must reach the landslide affected areas without any hassles. For that, road should be clear. That's one thing which is made very clear to the public right now. So what we understand right now is this landslide occurred in a difficult terrain, that we must admit. Most of the terrain, as you can see around me, it's basically a tea estate, and many workers were staying in isolated hamlets in and around that area. But the epicenter was known for landslide prone, that was marked as landslide prone area. But the worst affected place, the Churalmala area, it was absolutely considered a safe area. There were a lot of people over there, and a landslide occurred twice yesterday. The first landslide was okay enough, although some of the people they lost their life. But the second landslide, which occurred just 2 hours after that, proved really fatal. And the extreme case is that people, bodies, they are identified almost 40 kilometers away from this place, downstream in the neighboring district. And that's where it's a sad part.
Okay, Ajay, I appreciate you joining us with those updates from Wayanad. The India Met Department has forecast isolated to extremely heavy rainfall with very heavy rains over the northwest, northeast, west, central and southern parts of the country for the next few days. The department has said isolated extremely heavy rains are likely over Karnataka on Wednesday and over central Maharashtra till Saturday. IMD issued red alert for Uttarakhand and orange alert for Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, Delhi, Haryana and parts of Uttar Pradesh. Maharashtra is bracing for intense rains. The state will witness moderate showers in several districts. Recent heavy downpours have caused significant disruptions in Gujarat, leading to waterlogging and flood-like situation in many places of the state. And the national capital, Delhi, may witness generally cloudy sky with heavy rains on Wednesday, followed by light to moderate rains for the next 5 days. Let's now take a look at other stories making news today. A student delegation from Old Rajendra Nagar has been called to meet the Director of Municipal Corporation of Delhi. Meanwhile, Minister Atishi has said that strict action will be taken against those responsible once the magisterial report comes after thorough inquiry. The National Investigation Agency charge-sheeted an accused named Laling Hawa in pan-India illegal arms ammunition trafficking case linked with Myanmar-based insurgent group. The charge sheet was filed before the NIA Special Court. Lieutenant General Sadhana Saxena Nair will assume the appointment of Director General of Medical Services Army on 1st August. With this, Nair has become the first woman to be appointed to this prestigious position. Amid heightened security, a new batch of pilgrims left for Amarnath Yatra from the Palgam Yatra base camp in Indian state of Jammu on Wednesday. The 52-day-long Amarnath pilgrimage began on 29 June and will culminate on 19th August. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's market cap touches all-time high of $5.5 trillion for the first time. Indian shooter Swapnil reaches men's 50-meter air rifle 3 position final at the Paris Olympics.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris, and DD India brings you every heartbeat, every victory, and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama, and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis, and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. All eyes are on the US Federal Reserve monetary policy decision, as it is expected to signal on Wednesday that it will cut rates in September. Ahead of the announcement, Asian stocks surged on Wednesday. European shares also climbed nearly 1%. Chinese blue chip stocks were up about 2%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng was also 2% higher. That took MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific shares outside Japan 1% higher. Indian shares also traded slightly higher on Wednesday. Meanwhile, oil prices rose from 7-week lows. In commodities, US crude was 1.77% higher at $76.05 per barrel, and Brent was $79.82 per barrel. The Bank of Japan raised interest rates on Wednesday and projected inflation to stay around 2% target in coming years. At the two-day policy meeting, the central bank also laid out detailed quantitative tightening plan that will reduce monthly bond buying in several stages to around 3 trillion yen, or about $19.6 billion as of January-March 2026. The Bank of Japan's decision comes hours before that of the Fed, which is likely to hold rates steady before cutting rates as soon as September. And India's market capitalization has surpassed $5.5 trillion for the first time, just 2 months after reaching the $5 trillion mark. The achievement reflects the market's overall strength despite benchmark indices remaining relatively unchanged for the second consecutive day. By the end of trading on Tuesday, the total market cap of all companies listed on the BSE was $5.5 trillion. Earlier this year, India surpassed Hong Kong as the world's fourth largest stock market. Since then, it was widened its lead over the city-state. Time now for all the action from the world of sports. My colleague Deepika is joining me in the studio. And joining me is my colleague Deepika with all the action from the Olympics.
Thanks and good afternoon, Shubhendu. Let's get all the live action because we are tracking another good news from the sport of shooting. So first, let's bring you the update from badminton. With a good start to the day, two-time Olympic medalist V Sindhu qualified for the round of 16 at the ongoing Paris Olympics after topping Group M in women's singles category. V Sindhu defeated Estonia's Kristin Kuba by 21-5, 21-10 in her second and final group stage match. And in another great news from the sport of shooting, Indian shooter Swapnil Kusale successfully made it to men's 50-meter rifle three-position final. Kusale finished 7th in the qualifying round with a total of 590 points with 38 inner tens. With this, he becomes the 5th Indian shooter to reach the final of an Olympic edition. Meanwhile, Aishwarya Pratap Tomar finished at the 11th position. And now I'm joined by DD India correspondent Narayan Singh, who joins us straight from Paris. A very good afternoon to you from India, Narayan. Another great news from shooting, but we've got other sports which are in action. Table tennis is currently underway, and today is interestingly Srija's birthday, who's currently playing the table tennis match. Apart from that, Sindhu has given us a good start to the day. How do you look at India's progress so far, Narayan?
Fantastically, Indian squad is poised to be there in the we can say that the further rounds, and the news just coming now that Lakshya Sen too defeated the world number 4 Jonathan Christie. It's a big upset, we can say that. Kudos to Lakshya Sen, the kind of badminton he is playing here, defeated the Belgian player, now defeating the world number 4, and despite of the fact that his first match was declared null and void. So he's going great here. If we talk about Lakshya Sen's journey, just before the, we can say that 2 months after the Olympics, he got some good form, but before that, consistently we saw that he faced around 7 or 8 first round exit, and he was ranking 24 in the race to the Paris Olympics rankings. But despite of the fact, he worked hard and just we can say that increased his tempo and to be there in the Olympics. Otherwise, only HS Pranoy would have been there in the Olympics, and we know that the rules that the if 2 players are in the ranking of 1 to 16, then only 2 players of that National Olympic Committee are allowed to be there in the Olympics. And Lakshya Sen, we know that he know how to rise his game, and he exactly doing here. And right now he's in the pre-quarterfinals. We are hoping that this kind of performance we can hope already from Satvik Sairaj and Chirag Shetty. We are hoping a medal now. The kind of form, the kind of, we can say, mojo Lakshyan has gained, he is also a medal hopeful, and Suja Akula's matches are right now underway, and in the evening HS Pranoy will be there. So we are hoping that the momentum that the Indian contingent gained here after winning 2 medals in the shooting, and we are hoping that this will continue, and our all other athletes will also do a great thing here for the Indian squad.
Now, when we talk about India's squad and the momentum that we are talking about here, Narayan, interestingly, in the past 10 editions of Olympics, out of them, 6 have been, out of those 6 editions are there in which women have consistently created history, bagged medals, and we are witnessing another historic feat by Manu Bhaker also here, who after Norman Pritchard in the year 1900 becomes the first player to bag 2 Olympic medals. This is a great feat. How do you look at this changing landscape, not only when we talk about sporting infrastructure, which is gender neutral, but also this gender specific progress that India is witnessing over the years?
Definitely, we can say that in this edition of the Olympics also, a large chunk of the women athletes is there, and they are performing exceptionally well. Whether to talk about the Asian Games, Commonwealth Games, in every mega event, the participation of the women's athletes is immense, and they are, if you take a ratio of the medal winning athletes, it is also equivalent. So we can say that the landscape that has been changed in India regarding the Nari Shakti and the push of the government to just, we can say that all the schemes are there in place so that the women also get an equal opportunity. And we talk about this edition also, Manu Bhaker, who created history to become the first Indian athlete to win 2 medals in the independent India. This shows that everything is in place, whether it is sports or any other fields. Everything, we can say that from government side also, they are pushing so that our women power be at the top of the world.
All right, thank you so much, Narayan, for joining us and bringing us the latest from Paris Olympics. Now, as tourists from around the world gather in Paris for the ongoing Olympic Games, there are interesting visuals which are coming in, where a Lego boat service by a Paris company is beginning a tour from Wednesday on River Seine. The boat will take the passengers by famous attractions of Paris, including the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame and Louvre. The complete crossing takes around 1 hour and 45 minutes. The Lego boat will take journeys on River Seine until the 16th of September. That was a quick update from the world of sports. Back to Shubhendu.
Thank you. Hopes are up again for India at the Olympics. Deepika, thank you very much for those updates. And every night since the Paris Games were officially open, thousands gather to watch the Olympic flame as it rises in a hot air balloon above the French capital. When the sun goes down over the 2024 Paris Olympics, the iconic cauldron rises around 200 feet in the air for all to see. What looks like a ring of fire is lifted by a balloon that looks like a hot air balloon. The cauldron stands near the Louvre Museum at the Place des Tuileries, and the visitors can come for the show for free during the sunset if they booked a spot online. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.